Hey everybody, this is Donna Meals from Empowered Meals. That's who I am, that's what I do. I'm getting ready to jump on a plane, got my bag packed, and there was just one little thing that we didn't get to do. My son thought he'd have the morning off, but he had to actually go in. He's actually flying to Washington, and he has to quarantine for 2 weeks. Ew, so he's stuck in a hotel room. He was hoping to get to go to San Diego, and then we could come and visit him, but I don't think that was going to happen. So grandma was hoping she'd get to come and see him too. So anyway, I'm just going to do this really quick because the boys had some Costco chicken, you know, the frozen, and I pulled them out and put them in Ziploc bags, and I labeled them one. We're going to do 3 marinades real quick, and one is kind of French, another one is, or you know, European. One is Asian, and this is what I always do. I always take, you know, a Sharpie. Always label what I got. I use these bags for everything. They're like my saving grace. And so we also have a Mexican. So we're just gonna do, you know, I'm gonna do the same recipe blueprint, and I'm of course gonna wing it because I don't have, you know, as many. It's probably about a half of a recipe each, you know, the amount of chicken that I have. But that way they'll have 3 different meals, and the beauty of that is that could be one of your go-to dishes, is just unmarinated chicken, but it's not always the same thing. So that's what you know, you're gonna get the variety. That's what I'm trying to show you now. You're gonna get the variety by just having different flavors, and then you can just buy different produce or vegetables and just do a quick little saute in some olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic, and it goes perfectly with the flavors of the chicken. The easiest thing to do is actually just use I have flavor profiles, and I'm gonna post these underneath. I don't have the French one made up, but I'm gonna post the Asian and the Mexican profile. Anyway, here we go. So all of these, I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil in. So I'm gonna do this like the like drive-through style here. So I have a little bit of olive oil. I'm just gonna put maybe 1/8 of a cup because you know, the blueprint it calls for maybe I think 1/4. But I eyeball it. I have everything measured out and give you some ideas. And I literally am gonna use rice wine vinegar for all of these. It's really nice and mild. Just add a little bit in there. What that does is it adds a little acidity, breaks down maybe a tiny bit more. Rice wine vinegar is super mild, and it's not very strong like apple cider vinegar. It works really well. And so there, okay. So we've got the base of our, you know, of our marinade. And now let's go have fun, okay? So we're gonna do the French, okay? I love honey mustard. I got a little tiny bit of honey. I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. Not very much. It's just really to balance the flavors. And we've got a little bit of spicy mustard. It's a little Dijon, but there's a little red pepper in there too. I'm gonna add that in. And I have some fresh thyme left over. And I'm not gonna worry about picking the things, you know, the little leaves off, because this is probably gonna go in the freezer. And this is just gonna add flavor, you know. So let me get that out of the way. And then lemons. Lemon is very popular as a marinade. I'm just kind of squeezing these little. I don't want to put the rinds in if I'm going to throw in the freezer, because the rinds have a stronger flavor, but I am getting some of the actual, the lemon pith. And I think what I'll do is just squeeze the rest of that in there. So we got a little lemon juice. Oops. Forgot my little towel. I really am trying to rush because I'm trying to get to, I gotta get on my way to the airport. So it's got thyme. Thyme's gonna be your primary, and I'm gonna put a little secondary tarragon and my old standard parsley. It's just a blender thing. And you know, the boys, forgot my garlic. The boys don't have any onion powder. I would have probably thrown just a little tad of that in there, but that's good to go. So I'm just gonna smush that up. And I'm gonna close this up. I'm gonna lay it a little bit of flat there. Maybe pop out and just roll it to get the rest of the air out. Now that's gonna freeze up beautifully. Super easy. Okay, so next one, we're gonna go with, let's do that last, we'll do these in order. I'm gonna go with the Asian. I have some green onion, and I had a little bit of yellow pepper that, you know, the boys, they're not gonna probably use it. And so instead of it going bad, I can add a little flavor in here, okay? And I also have a little bit of cilantro. Cilantro will go, so I've got some green onion, a little yellow pepper, and some cilantro in there. The cilantro is one of the Asian flavors, really. I've got some sesame seeds. These happen to be green. I had pink and purple ones too. They're kind of cool. I usually use those for sushi. We did some sushi earlier. And of course, always if I'm going with just, you know, this is more like a Japanese Asian, and then they can just stir fry this. So I'm gonna put a tiny bit, you don't wanna use too much, and this is toasted sesame oil. Toasted sesame oil has a lot more flavor. You don't wanna make the mistake and get regular sesame oil, because it tastes like, I mean, it tastes like sesame, but you really want this one because it's gonna have more flavor. And you really don't need as much either. So this is one of those things where if you're gonna substitute in, you know, you may not need the full amount of what it calls for the oil. But here's the beauty of marination. When you marinate something and then cook it, it really is, you can really kind of almost go overboard because you're actually just really trying to put extra flavor in there. So it's usually, you can't go wrong. It's not gonna be too strong. So, and I'm actually gonna put some black pepper in here. And we need some garlic. Always need garlic. Got a little bit of onion in there. And I have this teriyaki sauce, so I'm gonna get some use out of that. And just put a little pinch in there. Now, if I wanted it to be spicy, I could put some red peppers in there. I have, at my house, I have toasted sesame oil with chili in it, and it's super hot. But these boys, they're dealing with limited, and I mean, this is pretty good. I mean, I of course went to Whole Foods and spent a fortune getting them set up with just a basic of all their stuff. I had enough spices that I brought, so they're set with that. So here we go. There's some Asian. And all you have to do is mix this with some red peppers, some onion, some zucchini if you want. Maybe throw some cashews in there. How simple is that? How simple is that? And you've got all the flavoring in the marinade. You just take the pan, pour the whole thing in there. The extra marinade's gonna serve as kind of like a little bit of a sauce, you know. Then maybe if you wanted to and you still had some of this teriyaki sauce, you could just throw a little bit in there for some extra flavor for the veggies. You know, it's a one pan meal. Put some rice in the rice cooker and, you know, that takes 2 seconds, and how easy is that? Okay, so we're on to number next. Mexican. So now I still have some of these green onions left. I'm gonna throw those in there. I still have some cilantro. I'm gonna throw that in there. I actually have some limes. Boys and I had some gin and tonics the other day, and we had some limes cut up, left over. Nothing in that fridge went to waste. I just made like a little bento box for my son so he can take it on the plane. So for the next day or two, he's gonna have a bunch of snacks that he can use, so he doesn't have to go to, like, I don't know, eat crap, fast food, 7-Eleven, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little tiny bit, you know what? I'm not gonna go with the chili powder. Now, just because you have 10 different things that have different flavors that are in, you know, that flavor, the category, like, see, the one I'm gonna post here is a Mexican flavor profile. It doesn't mean if you have half of those items that they all should go in. That's why I say pick a primary seasoning and then a secondary, okay? So I'm gonna go I'm not a huge fan of cumin, so I'm going to make that a little bit of my secondary. I'm not going to put too much in there, probably about a half of a teaspoon. We've already got coriander, which is in the form of cilantro as the, I'll throw a little more in there, as the herb. And I'm going to put, I roasted these myself. I roasted these whole corianders and then I ground them up in my coffee grinder. And I buy them really cheap in bulk. And then when I run out of a spice, I think I've mentioned this before, I just get my own in the bulk section and just add it in with a little funnel. So I got about a teaspoon, maybe not as much, of the good roasted coriander. And I think for my extra little flavor, I do have some salsa that I love, this Frontera, but I don't think I'm gonna go that direction. I think I'm liking the look with the green. If I had a jalapeno, maybe I'd throw that in there for a little heat. I think I put garlic in here. Well, if I forgot and I didn't, oh well. I'm gonna also put a little salt in here. Now there was a lot of salt in this mustard, so I didn't worry about doing it there. And there was a lot of salt in the teriyaki. But for this little beauty here, I think I'm gonna throw a little tad bit of chili pepper too. Okay, you know what? I only have like maybe a teaspoon of this salsa. Now that I got that chili pepper in there. So we've got some, some pretty good color in there. To me, if it's colorful and it looks good, it's gonna taste good. And I'm also gonna put a dash of cracked pepper. Now, for any one of these, if I had a little bit of wine, I love wine. I love wine in my marinades because it's like a blender. It's a blending flavor. And I would have put a little bit of, onion powder, but I had actually some of this real, the chopped green onions left. So there we go. There, took me 10 minutes to pull all this stuff and pull the lids off. Took me about 10 minutes to divide the chicken up and, get a bag. And here we go. This video's, I don't know, I can't see. 10, 15 minutes. And there, you've basically got 3 meals kind of ready to go. All you gotta do is chop some veggies, make some pasta, or make some potatoes or whatever, depends on what you wanna have. Let's see, we would do rice with the Asian, and we would do maybe some fettuccine or some roasted potatoes with the French. Ooh, that would be good. And for the Mexican, I don't know, I think it'd be kind of cool to do a little bit of rice and maybe throw some black beans together as well, or maybe just black beans. Get your legumes in there with not quite as much starch. A little bit more protein and a lot less starch than, say, rice. I'm kind of going away from that. And any one of these dishes, too, would go perfectly with a nice quinoa. And when you're adding the water to the quinoa, I usually would do chicken stock. I always do that instead of water because I always try to add more flavor. You could take some of these same spices that you marinated it with and just kind of put a little touch in there. So it just kind of marries all those flavors together. So that's just a little tip. So anyway, thanks for checking in. Flying back to the mainland, got this last one in, and I'm just really glad that you all joined me. Thanks so much. Aloha.